Remember when a phone wasn't in your pocket, but sitting in the kitchen with a cord that barely reached the hallway? Back then, phones weren't just tools, they were part of the furniture, part of the family. The sound of a busy signal, the clunky weight of a receiver, the way we memorized phone numbers by heart, these are things today's kids will never know. Today, we're looking at 15 forgotten phone features that kids will never believe, a trip back to when the world moved a little slower, and a phone call felt like an event. 1. Rotary dials. Long before touch screens, dialing meant turning a heavy circle of numbers, one at a time. Each click of the dial had its own rhythm, and if you messed up, you had to start all over. It wasn't fast, but it made calling someone feel deliberate. Rotary phones disappeared in the 1980s as push-button phones took over. But for those who grew up with them, the sound of that dial spinning back still feels like time travel. 2. Busy signals. Once upon a time, if someone was already on the phone, you didn't get voicemail, you got a sharp, repeating tone. That was the busy signal. It meant waiting your turn, calling back later, or just giving up. It was frustrating, but it also taught patience. With call waiting and voicemail, busy signals faded away in the 1990s. 3. Payphones. On every street corner, at gas stations, outside diners, you could count on seeing a payphone. Drop in a quarter, press the buttons, and make your call. They were lifelines for travelers, teenagers, and anyone who needed to check in. Cell phones slowly erased them, and by the 2000s, payphones were mostly relics. Finding one today feels like spotting a dinosaur. 4. Phone books. Before Google, the phone book was our search engine. Thick and heavy, it listed every family and business in town. Families kept it by the phone stand, flipping through its yellowed pages to find numbers. By the 2010s, most phone books stopped printing as people went online. Still, for many, the smell of ink and paper brings back memories of simpler times. 5. Operator assistance. Operator, may I have the number for, was once a common phrase. Operators were real people who helped you connect calls, look up numbers, or even place long-distance charges. It was like having a human search engine at your fingertips. Automated systems slowly replaced them, but older generations still remember the warmth in a helpful operator's voice. 6. Party lines. In rural areas, many homes shared the same phone line. Pick up the receiver, and you might hear your neighbor talking. Everyone had their own ring pattern, but sometimes people accidentally listened in. Party lines faded as private phone service became affordable in the 1970s and 80s. Today, the idea of sharing your phone with strangers seems impossible. 7. Long-distance charges. Calling someone across the country wasn't free, it could cost dollars per minute. Families saved long-distance calls for birthdays, holidays, or emergencies. People planned their words carefully, knowing every second cost money. Cell phone plans eventually made long-distance free, but those old bills remind us how valuable each call used to be. 8. Wall phones with extra long cords. Kitchen phones often had cords that stretched halfway across the house. Teenagers would pull the cord tight around corners, whispering to friends while parents pretended not to listen. Tangled cords were part of everyday life, and untwisting them became a little ritual. Cordless phones arrived in the 80s, and suddenly, freedom meant no more knots. 9. Phone booths. Made famous by Superman, phone booths offered privacy in a noisy world. Step inside, close the folding glass door, and shut out the street. Booths glowed like little lanterns at night, a beacon for anyone who needed to call home. With the rise of cell phones, they slowly disappeared, but the image of a glowing phone booth on a rainy street still feels magical. 10. Memorized phone numbers. Once upon a time, everyone carried dozens of phone numbers in their head. Your best friend's house, grandma's kitchen, the school office, you just knew them. The brain was the contact list. Now, phones remember everything for us, but we've lost the muscle memory of dialing numbers by heart. 11. Phone cards. In the 80s and 90s, calling cards were the budget traveler's best friend. You bought one at a gas station, scratched off the code, and used it at payphones to save money. They were practical, but also a reminder of how hard people worked to stay connected. Prepaid cell phones eventually replaced them, but calling cards are a snapshot of a world between payphones and smartphones. 12. Ringtone songs on keypads. Before downloadable ringtones, kids made songs by pressing keypad numbers in rhythm. Mary Had a Little Lamb was a favorite. It was a silly way to pass the time, and every phone had its own instrument. Today's smartphones can play any song, but those little keypad tunes were a kind of folk music of the phone age. 13. Collect calls. If you didn't have change, you could place a collect call. The operator would ask the person on the other end if they would accept the charges. Families sometimes got clever, squeezing messages into the name part to avoid paying. Pick-me-pat 7 said in one breath. Cell phones and unlimited plans ended the need, but the phrase, "Will you accept the charges?" lingers in memory. 14. Phone booth phone books. Payphones often had a chained phone book hanging beside them. Pages were wrinkled, torn, sometimes missing, but they were lifelines if you didn't know a number. They connected strangers in the middle of the night, travelers on the road, or kids stuck at the mall. The chained phone book disappeared with the payphone, but it was once a quiet hero. 15. The home answering machine. Before voicemail lived in the cloud, messages lived on little cassette tapes by the phone. A blinking red light meant excitement or dread. Families gathered around to hear missed calls, and some even recorded silly greeting messages. As cell phones and digital voicemail took over, the answering machine became obsolete, but its click and whir remain iconic sounds of the 80s and 90s. Phones today can do everything, but sometimes it's the little things we miss the most: the sound of a rotary dial, the thrill of finding a number in the phone book, or the comfort of hearing an operator's voice. These forgotten features remind us that technology isn't just about progress, it's about the memories we carry with us. Which of these do you remember most? Drop your favorite in the comments, and if this trip down memory lane brought back a smile, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time on American Rewind.